Guys, everything that you ever need to know about American politics, you can learn through the history of professional wrestling, okay? Stay with me. And by the way, I should preface this by telling you, I'm not a big pro wrestling fan. When I was a little kid, I watched some of it. I'm sure you guys could relate if we're telling the truth and being fair. I'm not a pro wrestling fan. And I know what else you're thinking. You're thinking, Chael, how are you possibly going to tie in everything we need to know about American politics to the history of professional wrestling? Well, glad you asked, because here's how. Around 1960, and it might have been just a little bit before that, 38 different states within the Union that we know as America decided that they needed to have a boxing and wrestling commission. Now, boxing had been tremendously corrupted back then. Promoters would come into towns, they'd have fighters fight, they'd make them promises. They would then leave before the show was ever over and pay absolutely nobody, go to the next town, set up the tent, pop the popcorn, and do it all over again. Bigger problem was there were starting to be some very big municipalities that were taking action on boxing. And by action, I'm talking about gambling. So then mobsters were able to get involved. They were able to fix fights. They were able to go make a threat to a guy and tell him when and what round to go down, go cash in at the window. Got very dirty and corrupt. And when you had certain areas who were surviving, Vegas specifically, Atlantic City specifically, that were surviving on gaming revenue, you had to make sure that there wasn't corruption. So something was formed known as a boxing commission. Now that happened to extend in 38 states. All 50 states had boxing commissions, but 38 of those states set up a boxing and wrestling commission. Why? Because 38 different legislative bodies signed into law by 38 different governors thought it was real. They didn't know the difference. So they would then license in a referee wearing an earpiece, laying unconscious on the canvas after he was hit over the head by another licensed athlete known as a wrestler with a steel folding chair. And they would make you, the taxpayers, pay for it because they thought it was real. Fast forward. You get it to a year called 1998, and Vince McMahon, the king of WWF, World Wrestling Federation, has to go to trial. That a big steroid thing and a big scandal and this and that, but either way, he's now on the stand and he's sworn in. Opposing counsel asks him under oath straight up, is wrestling real? I believe he worded it with, is there a predetermined outcome in the winner of wrestling? Or is it nothing more than a show? The judge should have struck that down. It had nothing to do with the trial, but the judge was curious too. This might be hard for some of you guys to believe. There was a genuine conversation and phenomenon in the world at that time as to, is wrestling real? In fact, here, let me stand down and give you one example. Bruce Baumgartner, who was an Olympic heavyweight champion in wrestling, went on a television show called 2020 with Barbara Walters. One of the biggest, most acclaimed and accredited and successful news shows in the history of time. He sat there with a host named John Stossel. Bruce Baumgartner, Olympic champion, sat there with John Stossel, and they watched tapes of professional wrestling. And Bruce was pretty sure. He was pretty sure he could see a bend in the knee by one wrestler who then jumped, thus showing he was cooperating with the other wrestler. This is the Olympic champion. He's pretty sure. That's as far as he could get. The Olympic champion could not say definitively on 2020, that's fake. So just to paint a perspective for you, that's how many people and that's how big this phenomenon was, and this is how successful they were at duping everybody. Vince McMahon, when he took the stand and had to answer the question under oath, of which should have been stricken down, believed that the very next day he was walking into a desolate situation, that his company was going to go bankrupt, and how do I possibly sell a product that is not real after I have told the whole world from the beginning of time, and my father did before I came along about the company from him, that it is real and that it is an actual sport. How do I possibly do it? Much to Vince's surprise, to this day, he sells out arenas. He now has national distribution deals twice a week on publicly traded platforms, and his company is also now exchanged on the NASDAQ for shares. Business has never been better. Why? Because it's entertainment. And people want to be entertained. And Vince quickly realized he could present this to the audience and say, hey, you guys still go to movies. You know that those aren't real. You still watch TV. You know that that isn't real. I'm going to entertain you as well. And I'm going to follow the same storyline that the movies and the television shows do. I'm going to have a good guy, and he's going to take on a bad guy. You can't have a story without it. It simply does not work. And why everybody wants to go out there and be the leading man, why everybody wants to go out there and be the most handsome guy, and grow their hair the longest, and have the shiniest smile, and have the most charisma, and get everybody's applause, and be on the cover of all of the magazines, you got a whole lot of competition going for this. But you can't have a show unless you also have this. And to have this, for the most part, all you have to do is raise your hand. So you can move out to Hollywood, and you can be a waiter, and you can be a busboy as you're working your way up and hoping that you stumble across a director that can give you an opportunity and hand you a perfect script. Or you can come in and just simply say, I'm willing to do it. There is always room in the other seat. I come from the world of fighting. I have watched a promotion. Okay. I will watch a guy be the champion of the world, and he'll be what's known as a babyface, which means he's the good guy. But he has the belt. He can be whatever in the hell he wants. And why? Because his next fight will be for a world championship. And why? Because he's bringing it. His next fight will be in a main event. Why? Because he's the main event. And then I will see people try to become his opponent and think that the promotion's working against him and say things like this isn't fair and I've beaten guys and I deserve that opportunity. There's no story unless there's a bad guy. So if you're going to come in and you want to be the nice guy when the champion is already the good guy, then that seat is taken. It's taken. And in the world of storytelling, this is the seat that we need. This is the opportunity, and this is the other side of the corner that still needs a spot. I am offering you this. I've offered you this before. I offered it you one time before that. I am trying to prove the point. And guys, I will leave you with one final thought today, but I'm going to be back right away, and I'm going to put this to conclusion for you. But there is an expression in business, and do not ever forget it. If two guys in the office always agree on everything, one of them isn't needed.